Hi everybody. A few of you have reached out to me and said that you're having difficulty with the domain and the range, especially when it came to our graphs. So I figured I would do my best to try and help and explain this to you. I do miss seeing you guys every day and being in front of the classroom trying to help you, but we'll try and give this a shot and see how it goes. So if we take a look at the questions that I gave you here, each one of them are asking us for the domain and the range and whether the graph is a function or not. So when we're looking at our graph, I need you guys to remember that we have two axes. We have our x-axis and we have our y-axis. The two of them are extremely important because they each represent something we need to find. The x-axis represents our domain, and our y-axis represents the range. Okay? So let's start out with the domain first. So if we're looking at our domain, we're focusing, what color did I use? We're focusing in on our x-axis. Okay, so if we take a look, we have a point here. The x value of that point would be -3. So that would be one of our domain values. And we also have a point here, and that x value is 2. So -3 and +2 would be our domain. Now, for the range, we're focusing in on the y-axis. Right, now if we look at the graph that they gave us, our y-axis starts here, but it's continuing down. Do we know where it stops if there's an arrow? That arrow is showing us that it's traveling in that one direction and we don't know where it stops. So if we're looking at this, we're going towards -infinity. And for this graph here, we're going towards +infinity. So right there we found our domain, we found our range. Now they're asking us whether or not this graph is a function. So for figuring out if it's a function or not, we need to perform something called a vertical line test. Okay, now a vertical line is a line that goes up and down. We're actually going to draw these vertical lines through our graph. Now, if the vertical line hits the graph one time, it's a function. More than one time, whoops, it's not a function. So if we take a look, we have our graph here. If I was to draw a vertical line over it, my vertical line definitely hits the graph more than one time. Okay, same thing here. My vertical line hits the graph more than one time. So right there we would have not a function. Sorry if this looks like a mess. Just to make you guys laugh, Riley just fell asleep in my arms. Must be my voice. You guys don't only fall asleep, so does the baby. Okay, let's move on to number 2. So with number 2 here, we have a few things that we need to pick up. We're still focusing in, I'm just gonna erase this. We're still focusing in on our two axes. So we have our x-axis, we have our y-axis. Before we even do anything with domain and range, we could simply do a vertical line test. If we were to draw vertical lines here, my vertical line hits the graph once. Here, it hits the graph once. We continue on this side. My vertical lines only hit the graph in one spot each time. So right here, we definitely have a function. Okay, so I'm going to erase those vertical lines so we don't get confused. And let's go on to domain and range. So we said domain is on the x-axis. So for our domain here, I want you guys to notice the two circles that we're working with here. This circle here is an open circle. This circle here is a closed circle, okay? When you're working with these different types of circles, it's called interval notation when we express our domain and our range. So whenever you have an open circle, you're going to signify that with parentheses. And whenever you have a closed circle, you're going to show that with brackets, okay? So if we look at this, we're looking at our domain. Our x value would be -5, expressing it with a parenthesis, sorry, because it's open. And x value here would be +5, and we're going to close it with a bracket. So there's our domain. Now we want to take a look at range. Okay, so for our range, we're looking at the y-axis. So we want to go from the highest y value to the lowest y value. So if we're looking at that, highest y value, right here, +2. Lowest y value would be right here at -2. That right there is your range. Now both of these points are included in the graph, so we're going to signify it with brackets. So it would be from -2 to +2 with a bracket. Remember, the parentheses show that it's with an open circle, but the number is not included. A closed circle includes the number. Some of this should sound somewhat familiar. I remember covering it with you guys, but we tend to forget some things, and that's okay. So if we take a look now at number 3. Okay, number 3. Each one of the graphs we've done so far look kind of different. Okay, so now if we look at number 3, I want you guys to take note that the ends of number 3, here and here, are not stopping. So if they're not stopping, we don't know where it starts and we don't know where it ends. So with that in mind, we're going to have a domain, which once again is our x. Since we don't know where it starts and where it ends, it would be from -infinity to +infinity. We're always going to show infinity with parentheses all of the time. So our range, same exact thing, -infinity to +infinity. Once again, for our function, we're going to do the vertical line test. If we draw vertical lines through our graphs, we should see that it's only hitting the graph one time. Yes, it is a function. All right. One question that I noticed a few of you had a question on was number 5. So if we take a look at number 5 here, we don't see any lines, we're just seeing points, okay? So when it comes to us finding the domain, we're going to take each one of these points and state the x value. So the x value for our first point here would be -3. I changed colors here. We have another point here. X value is -2. Here's another point. X value here is +1. Here we have another point. Our x value is 2. And here's our last point, and the x value is 5. So there is our domain. Range, we're going to do the same exact thing, but we're not looking at the x-axis, we're looking at the y-axis. So if we go ahead and we start with that, I'm going to start start down here at this point, y value -5. Okay, if we go to our orange point here, the y value is 0. Okay, if we go to our next 2 points, I'm just going to do it a different color so you guys can see. We got this point and we got this point. They're both at the same y value, so we're only going to write that once, okay? And it happens to be number 1. And our last point, the red point that we made up here, has a y value of +4. Perfect. So there's our domain and our range. Function or not a function. If we were to draw vertical lines through each one of our points, this vertical line goes through the point once. This goes through the point once. One time, and one time. This would be a function. All right. Everything we've done. Oh, number 1 was not a function. I just want to show you here with number 7. That would be an example of not a function also. Okay, because if we were to draw a vertical line, my vertical line here hits this graph once here, twice here. Since it goes through it 2 times, that makes it not a function. Well, I hope this helped you guys out. If there's any other problems that you would like me to go over, you can let me know, and I'll try my best to do this again for you as soon as possible. We are going to have a quiz on Friday. I'm going to mention that to you guys tomorrow in your lesson posting. So I'll tell you what to study and everything else. Majority of the test is going to be domain and range. Sorry, not a test, a quiz. Friday is the end of the marking period, so I figured we would just wrap it up with one more quiz, and you guys are good to go. Well, I hope everyone's staying healthy. I'm thinking about all of you, and I miss you. See you guys soon. Bye.